Thank you, Madam Chair. For more than a decade, there has been a focus by Barack Obama and Joe Biden and their administrations, a focus that I find as inexplicable as it has been catastrophic, on freeing terrorists from American detention. In 2009, the Obama-Biden foreign policy team decided to close the detention facility at Camp Bucca in Iraq. By 2014, as ISIS was forming, it became clear that over a dozen of the group's top leaders had been freed from Camp Bucca. Those included Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, his deputy, and Abu Muhammad al-Julani, the founder of al-Nusra Front. Having learned nothing, that same team repeated the exact same mistakes, this time with the Bagram prison in Afghanistan, as part of the administration's catastrophic withdrawal. Now, the images that Americans remember of that catastrophe are of chaos and carnage. Over 100,000 Afghans, many of them unvetted and unvettable, loaded onto airplanes to be deposited into the United States. Taliban terrorists overrunning U.S. and Afghan army positions, seizing unaccountable numbers of advanced weapons and technology, and parading them for global audiences. And of course, the August 26th terrorist attack on the Kabul airport, in which an ISIS-K bomber killed 13 American service members. What is less well known is that that bomber had been imprisoned in the Bagram prison, which until that summer had been under American control. The Biden administration made a conscious decision, again inexplicably, to abandon that critical position, and with it the high-security prisoners housed there. Having still apparently learned nothing, releasing terrorists, seeing them killing Americans, releasing more terrorists, seeing them killing more Americans, the Biden administration is talking about doing it again. Now they're talking about closing the facility at Guantanamo Bay. I think before that's even contemplated, we should have some sense of the toll that these catastrophic decisions have had. For instance, the Washington Post, hardly a right-wing organ, has reported, quote, at least 12 detainees released from the detention camp at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, have launched attacks against U.S. or allied forces in Afghanistan, killing about a half dozen Americans. So you have terrorists freed at Camp Bucca, Americans murdered. You have terrorists freed from Guantanamo, Americans murdered. You have terrorists freed from Bagram, Americans murdered. And now the Biden administration wants to free more terrorists. And we know to an absolute metaphysical certainty the result of that will be more Americans murdered. I want to ask the witnesses, I recognize that the Biden administration declined to send a government official charged with explaining the administration's policy. But let me ask all the witnesses assembled here, does anyone on the panel know a full account of the number of terrorists who were released from Camp Bucca that went on to fight for ISIS or the al-Nusra Front? So we don't have that information. All right, how about this? Does anyone know an accurate count of the number of U.S. servicemen and women that have been murdered by individuals we've set free from Camp Bucca, from Bagram, or from Guantanamo? So we don't know how many servicemen and women have been murdered, but yet the Biden administration is preparing to go down this road once again. And it's worth noting that the terrorists we find returning to the battlefield are just some of the ones we've released. there's good reason to suspect they're not the only ones who've returned to violence and terrorism. Before we free more terrorists, we should get to know where the past ones have gone and where future ones are likely to go. Professor Jaffer, is there a rough estimate of where the terrorists freed from U.S.-run facilities have gone, and to what extent and at what level are those numbers tracked?
So, Senator Cruz, I think the answer is that with respect to the terrorists that we transfer to other countries, we have security assurances from those countries for some period of time. Those security assurances are not forever. As Mr. Simpson correctly laid out, they're negotiated typically on a one-to-one or one-to-few basis. But those we have a sense of. But once they go out from those security assurances, we don't know where they are. And the others that we've released, we don't necessarily know where everyone ends up. What we do know to a certainty is that 33%, roughly 32%, 31.5%, have either returned to the fight, are known to have returned to the fight, or suspected of it. Those are statistics from the Director of National Intelligence, so we know that, and that's a real problem. So if you think about the 700 whatever odd number of people that have been released from Gitmo, 229 have either returned to the fight or suspected of returning to the fight somewhere on the globe.
Wow. Okay, final question. Of the 39 detainees that remain at Guantanamo Bay, roughly 20 are from nations without a fully functioning government. 14 of them are from Yemen, where enormous swaths of the country are ruled by terrorists. To what extent, Professor Jaffer, are such countries able to track and secure terrorists and prevent them from murdering Americans?
They are not able, which is exactly why we cannot transfer to those countries.
Thank you.